7:36 the time now. Theresa May has informed Donald Trump of her disappointment after the president announced he would be withdrawing the United States from the Paris Climate Change Accord. Under the agreement, countries pledged to cut carbon dioxide emissions. The aim to limit the rise in average global temperatures to 2 degrees by the year 2100, with a promise of $100 billion a year to help poorer countries meet their targets. America will join Nicaragua and Syria as being the only countries not to sign up to the Paris deal. A defiant reaction came in thick and fast from leaders all across Europe and around the world following President Trump's announcement. This is what the French President Emmanuel Macron had to say.
The Paris Agreement remains irreversible and will be implemented, not just by France, but by all the other nations. Because wherever we live, whoever we are, we all share the same responsibility. Make our planet great again.
Emmanuel Macron's comments there. Richard Black is the Director of the Energy and Climate Change Intelligence Unit here in the UK. Very good morning to you.
Hi, Charlie.
So I imagine, like everyone else, you were watching Glued last night. Was it 8:40 when the speech began?
Yep.
Initial reaction?
It was an odd speech, combined a lot of emotion with quite a few numbers. The emotion seemed to be very much harking back to an America that was built on coal and built on steel, with real men in hard hats doing real jobs. So a lot of the numbers come from studies that have been quite heavily discredited, but they spoke of massive economic losses and massive job losses in the future. And basically he was saying we need to pull out of this agreement in order to rebuild those industries such as coal and steel on which America became great. But of course, as the world has moved on, the number of people employed in coal mines in America has about halved in about 20 years. That wasn't because of the Paris Climate Agreement. It's because better things came along, like natural gas and renewable energy and ways of stopping wasting so much energy, which are better for society.
OK, so help me with a couple of thoughts. I heard after the comments from quite a few experts in this field that in some ways his decision won't make much difference, that momentum has changed and so many countries are signed up that in a way, symbolically, hugely important, but in practice, maybe not so much.
I think that's absolutely right. In a large part, agreements such as the Paris Agreement reflect what the big important countries are doing anyway and what they see as their national interest. So even before the Paris Agreement was signed, China had announced massive plans for renewable energy, nuclear energy, improving its energy efficiency, India following suit. Now, since then, they have actually intensified their pledges and their commitments, particularly in regard of sort of shutting coal-fired power stations and so on. There's no reason for those countries to change course. And increasingly, the balance of world power is shifting towards Asia, with China and India. I mean, Asia has more than half the world's population already. That's driving things forward. Here in Europe, we've seen actually remarkable successes through cutting climate change. The UK, for example, our per capita wealth has grown by about 45% in the 25 years since the Rio Earth Summit started all this thing. We've cut our per capita emissions by a third. The real world evidence is that, you know, controlling carbon emissions and getting richer do go hand in hand.
And some states in America, California leading this charge, are saying, do you know what, we're going to do what we're going to do anyway. In a way, what President Trump has decided for the nation won't affect how we're going to operate. And what California's own output is something like the 5th largest in the world, isn't it? So can they just carry on and the effect almost be the same as if America hadn't pulled out? Yeah,
that's right. There was a new alliance launched straight away last night between the governors of California and Washington and New York. And between them, they account for about 20% of US carbon emissions. California has incredibly ambitious targets, half of electricity from renewable sources by 2030, doubling the rate at which they stop wasting energy. They want to change, motoring over from petrol and so on to electric vehicles. Yes, they can do it. The only thing that might stop them, I suppose, is if the White House decides to impose new regulations that have impact nationwide, if they effectively try to block the states. But I mean, one knows how lawyers and courts would react to that.
We will see. Richard, thank you very much for your time this morning. Richard Black is from the Energy and Climate Change Intelligence Unit. Time now is 7:41.